Mr. Davion Murphy taking full credit for his role in this shooting. That is just after his arrest, when he is left alone in an interview room.
This guy's an idiot. The Foolio murder trial for the 4 men facing the death penalty has begun. 3 alleged shooters in a black Impala and 1 lookout man in a Chevy Cruze with his girlfriend. I'll be covering the full trial. Hit subscribe. Let's go. There's Rashad with the suit on. This man, Isaiah Chance, got a turtleneck on. There's Sean Gathright, got the gray suit on. One of the AR shooters, allegedly. Had the arsenal in his home. Hold up. Davion Murphy shaved his head.
Okay, very good. You may proceed with your opening statement.
He looks scared as shit as always.
He was here in Tampa for his birthday, celebrating his birthday, celebrating with friends, well-wishers. He had traveled here to this city, to Tampa. He was being watched. He was being followed, being stalked. These conspirators had planned and were now executing a very premeditated plot that had been hatched days, weeks before this day. A plot hatched between them with every one of their collective evil intentions. Charles Jones would only see his killers briefly, maybe for seconds, or maybe even a split second, the evidence will show, as they rapidly closed in on him, dressed from head to toe in all black, like ninjas, the evidence will show, coming out of the dark. And sitting in the front seat of his Dodge Charger, their plan came perfectly together. He was now the perfect target.
He had his feet up on the dash, chilling.
Unable to run, unable to dive, basically caged in the front seat of that Dodge Charger, Charles Jones was a sitting duck. Coordinated precision, they ran to their respective firing positions and then unleashed a hellish onslaught, effecting a precisely coordinated violence of action, sending a barrage, a wall of hot lead, crashing into the only barriers between them and Charles Jones, the only barriers that separated his life from his death. And those barriers were absolutely no match. No match for the high-powered 5.56 NATO and 300 Blackout high-powered rifle rounds, each of which was traveling at thousands of feet per second, each round carrying with it over 1,200 foot-pounds of lethal energy directed specifically at Charles Jones. A Glock 9mm handgun was being utilized by one of these conspirators, but not the way that it was designed. Not as a semi-automatic handgun, where you get a single bullet with a single trigger pull. No. This Glock had been converted into a fully automatic hand cannon, and now it was running wide open, fully automatic, depositing over 30 rounds out of its extended magazine into the hood and into the windshield of that Dodge Charger.
Rashad's about to pop out the bottom right here. That's Rashad with the Glock. And here's Sean Gathright with the AR and the shell casing catcher on the side of it, so no casings were left. Davion pops up at the top here. There's Foolio's car trying to run. Davion on the Tesla cam.
Now, this conspiracy hatched not minutes, not hours, but days and weeks before this date, before this murder. A conspiracy formulated in the hearts and minds of these 4 defendants with one common agreed upon goal: death, murder.
All right, now he gets into the motive.
Gerard Adams, also known as Spaz, was part of a gang called 1200. He was murdered in August of 2018. Sir Adams, as I said, was part of a gang, 1200. 1200 is affiliated with another gang, ATK. Those 2 gangs are affiliated. Adrian Bibby Gaynor was associated to another gang, 6 Block, which was an opposing gang. In this case, in the evidence, you may hear the term ops or opposition or dead ops, meaning opposing gangs, the opposition. ATK and 1200 were and are the opposition to 6 Block. 6 Block also has a subset or a sub-gang, Bully Gang, which is confederated with 6 Block. Jaquan Pickens, also known as Jake Jit, was murdered in August of 23.
He was also a rapper, and I'm pretty sure he got caught on like a highway, and they shot him while going like fast, and he just slammed into an 18-wheeler, I think.
August 16th of 23. The next day, August 17th of 23, Jacoby Lil Colby Beals, a 1200 gang member, shot multiple times. He would survive. And you can see in this, and you will see in the state's evidence, a back and forth between these gangs that oppose each other.
They're just showing the back and forth mode of gang war. The Murphys, though, were specifically, I believe, related to the first one he showed of Spaz in 2018.
October 6th, specifically of 23.
This Tilly one is really sad. His Uber driver got murdered too. Just an innocent person in the area.
At 11:45, Antonio Tilly, who was an ATA, or was an ATA gang member, was shot to death while he was in an Uber.
It said ATA, ATK.
Just over 6 hours after the murder of Antonio Tilly, on October 7th, attackers with high-powered rifles would shoot up that same Dodge Charger being driven by our murder victim, Charles Jones. This was 9 months before the murder of Charles Jones. He had left his house at about 6 in the morning and was driving down the street, coming to a stop sign, when attackers with high-powered rifles opened up on his Dodge Charger. He would escape that morning with his life. He would drive to a local hospital and be treated for a gunshot wound to his lower leg.
So he survived, and there's evidence that it was Sean Gathright that shot him too. Same dude trying to kill him months before. Crazy shit.
Drill rap is a different type of rap. It is a specific type of rap that these groups that I've already talked to you about, 6 Block and Bully Gang, and then on the other side, 1200 ATK, engaged in. Songs that were produced and songs that were distributed on social media platforms like YouTube and Spotify. Rap music where opposing gangs' casualties, people in those gangs that had been murdered, would be demeaned, mentioned, ridiculed, made fun of, to elevate the gang making the video, who had been murdered, in sarcastic lyrics, traveling in some instances to gravesides, whether it was the graveside of that person who was actually killed or some other graveside that would stand in.
Going to the grave sites of your ops is one of the most diabolical things you could possibly do. Of course, they're putting Who I Smoke in here.
Is a combination 1200 ATK video. The major performer is an individual named Kenyatta Bullard, also known as Youngin Ace or Ace. Spinabins is one of the performers who is a well-known drill rapper.
You can support me on Patreon for just $3 a month. I would greatly appreciate it. I love every single one of you. Back to the video.
Gang member in Jacksonville, and Wappa with the Choppa is another. You can see in this photograph in the background,
Them saying their names.
Youngin Ace in the yellow. Kenyatta Bullard, a.k.a. Youngin Ace. And you can see his ATK chain around his neck. In this video, you will see these performers at times during the video pointing up in the air, and you will see the names of people appearing on the screen. Those are casualties from 6 Block. Those are people who were murdered on the opposite side. And you will hear them talking about them in this drill rap. So we see here the title to the drill rap song, Spinabins, Wappa with the Choppa, Young and Ace, and Fast Money Goon are all participants in this video. And this is them pointing, Tiki being an opposing gang member who was murdered.
Oh, they're playing it? I'm not going to play it because copyright, obviously, but I got to say, I made videos reacting to this song when it came out with my mom, and I said it was going to be used in court.
Who I Smoke, meaning who is killed or shot. So we saw Spinabins and Wappa with the Choppa. Spinabins, Noah Williams, came out with this song concerning this murder, this song being released within a couple of days of the murder of Charles Jones. It's called Foolio Dead. Now, that last video, the Who I Smoke video by Young and Ace, these videos are not just put onto YouTube. Young and Ace is a celebrity. He has tens of millions of followers on Spotify and YouTube. These songs attract a lot of attention. This song, as I said, was put out within a day or two of the death of Charles Jones here in Tampa. You're going to see references and hear references in this to not only Charles Jones' name, but to the name Six, Mr. Six, or Six meaning 6 Block.
What are you writing, Sean? You putting shit on notes and shit, passing them around?
Couldn't be any clearer about who they're talking about. You even saw footage from the area where the murder occurred. Foolio dead, for real, his ass a ghost. This is a good example of drill rap.
It really is some of the dumbest shit possible.
This was another song, this one by Young and Ace, the same guy from the Who I Smoke video. This song came out, I think, 4 or 5 days after the murder of Mr. Jones. This is called Game Over.
This is so diabolical that Ace did this. The Don Julio.
So you hear him mentioning Mr. Six, that is Charles Jones. The Don Julio you keep seeing, the tequila, again, that is a diss against Charles Jones, whose rap name was Julio Foolio. As I said, Kenyatta Bullard is a certified celebrity. Also known as Julio Foolio, also known as Foolio, Mr. Six, or just Six. Like Kenyatta Bullard, the person in the last 2 videos that was the lead rapper, who is the public face of ATK. Mr. Jones, the evidence will show, was the public face of 6 Block. He was the main person in that gang, the main spokesperson, and he was also a celebrity with tens of millions of followers on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. This is a drill rap song that Mr. Jones did a couple of years before his murder. Talk
This is crazy.
about several people that are opposing gang casualties. You will see a poster that he is holding and walking around that has 3 photographs on it. 3 young men that were all murdered in a shooting that involved Kenyatta Bullard, Young and Ace, who was the only survivor of that shooting. They had gone out to celebrate his birthday, and you heard him say very sarcastically happy birthday several times in that video.
These guys are murdering each other on their birthdays, celebrating their birthdays.
Got dead ops on my mind, dead opposition, casualties of the opposite side. He also says something very similar to the video that Kenyatta Bullard, Young and Ace put out after Foolio, Charles Jones murder in this case, 4 shot, 3 dead. Very similar lyrics. This is a back and forth diss. This is back and forth. And it is this animosity and hatred between these gangs that drove the conspiracy in this case.
So Foolio came here at 4:26 a.m. to find a room.
You're going to see Mr. Jones. He's wearing a red knit cap. He's wearing a white t-shirt. You will see him exit the Charger and walk into the hotel. So what happens is, while they were out that night, he had made a reservation, but because they arrived so late, it was given away. You're going to see an individual named Taifa McCrae and Miss Albritton, who was dressed in an all-pink suit.
These two are so lucky that they go inside to use the restroom. There's a chance this saved their life.
Now you're going to see another car come by. This is a small silver Chevy Cruze. This, you will find in the evidence, is the surveillance tracker vehicle that was utilized by these conspirators, by these defendants, to follow, to track, and stalk Mr. Jones and his friends, giving real-time, by communications, by phone, real-time location data and information about where he would be. This car passes by, being driven by defendant Isaiah Chance, his girlfriend. You saw her earlier. Miss Andrews is in the front passenger seat. The assault team is already present on the west side of the hotel. That was the car that had pulled in earlier and went northbound and did not pass the portico. This is a mounted camera, by the way, folks, on the hotel that's facing east-southeast. If you look in the upper right part of the screen by the 2 palm trees, you're going to see, right before the shooting happens, a masked individual's face pop out. The evidence in this case will show that it's defendant RASHAD Murphy. He is the Glock shooter. This is the beginning of the, well, actually it's not. First we're going to see the Chevy Cruze come by. And then the Chevy Cruze will do a 3-point turn. You'll see that in other video evidence shortly. And it turns around and goes back out. And now it's exiting. Mr. Chance drives right past the victim and exits the parking lot of the hotel literally within seconds of the murder occurring and starting. You will see him exiting to the right, going southbound on McKinley.
Foolio has his feet up on the dash.
There's the shooter. Xavier Edwards tries to escape from the shooting. You can see the other 2 cars, one being driven by Camilla Bentley, who's going forward, the other one being driven by Armani Turner, who's going backwards. In their haste to flee from the shooting, they actually collide with each other, and they both end up going southbound on McKinley. They go different directions.
This shit is so crazy. They did all this shit on camera, and it gets worse. Oh, right here. I never realized he was visible all the way over here.
As they move through there, they pass a Tesla. This is a video from a Tesla. There are multiple screens and videos you will see from this Tesla, which was in Sentry mode, activated, and recorded.
Sentry mode. People keep bringing up the David case with the Tesla, remember? Gotta have Sentry mode on, and it was there for weeks. Probably didn't keep any of the footage, but I'm gonna make a video on that, about other things the Tesla could have kept in the David case.
Who showed them this video on the screen inside of the Tesla, and they were able to collect this video. In this instance, you can see to the far right, you can see a charging station with cables hanging off of it. You will see in the grass area by the charging station, you will see Davion Murphy running by, holding a rifle, wearing all black with an orange ski mask. Mr. Jones' Charger, after being impounded and transported to the Tampa Police Department. Impound lot, all of those yellow marks other than the ones on the hinges. So you see Ms. Turner, Mr. Jones' girlfriend in the upper left. She was in the Hyundai. Ms. Randolph, her friend, was in the Hyundai. And Robert Howard, who is a friend of Charles Jones, was in the Hyundai with those women, sitting directly behind the Dodge Charger. You see Taifa McCrae and Aaliyah Albritton, the woman who was in the pink outfit, who were in the Nissan Altima.
This is the driver that tried to escape with Foolio in the car.
Xavier Edwards was wounded. He was shot in his right arm. He had a grazing wound to his head. Gino Norris. Mr. Norris is a longtime friend of Charles Jones, going back several years into their youth. He was in the back seat of the Charger. He had come with Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Jones had traveled here from Jacksonville to celebrate the birthday. Mr. Edwards and Mr. Norris bail out of the car, and they run from these shooters because they don't know where they are. They run into a Holiday Inn, and they leave a massive blood trail that leads into that Holiday Inn, which police would later follow when they arrive because of the multiple 911 calls being generated from all of the noise of the gunfire. She is our fourth victim.
See, this right here is why I wouldn't even be friends with these people. Put yourself in danger just being around these people, bro.
Now, he's going to be appearing at Teasers. You see that in the middle of the advertisement on Nebraska Avenue, 9700 North Nebraska Avenue.
This was a lapse in judgment, posting his location on his birthday when he knows that they have allegedly targeted the rival gang on their birthday. So they're going to try to do the same shit to you, bro.
So for his birthday, you see B-Day in the middle there. He is advertising, and then you also can see Mr. Howard there in the yellow. He was one of the individuals in the Hyundai. He's advertising his whereabouts on June 22nd, where he is going to be. A phone that Mr. Murphy, RASHAD Murphy, was utilizing. On June 22nd, he receives this confirmation concerning, and I'm going to come back to this later, and I'll let you look at it in a little more detail, but it's concerning the booking of an Airbnb in Tampa on June 22nd. June 22nd, Saturday, in the middle of the day. This is the beginning of that day for these conspirators. You're going to see Mr. Gathright and Mr. Chance loading a Chevy Impala that is being driven by Mr. Gathright, Sean Gathright. It is registered to his mother, but it is the car that he drives and operates. And it is the car that transports the shooters, the assault team of which he is part of in this case. You're going to see them loading it with book bags, but you're also going to see them loading it with rolling duffel bags, long bags. That's Mr. Gathright, Mr. Chance. You'll see the evidence that they are friends. That is the Impala, the black car.
Yeah.
We're talking about how they're going to load the heaviest bags into the trunk first.
In 4K. Well, actually, this looks like about 1080p. So they're saying Rashad used this Glock switch.
They end up leaving that residence. Mr. Gathright driving the black Impala. They travel from Jacksonville that Saturday afternoon down around near Gainesville, all the way down 75, down to 275, and they come down, and you will see them end up at the Airbnb, which Mr. RASHAD Murphy has booked for them, which is sitting literally 1.38 miles from the home to suites, just on the north side of the USF campus, the University of South Florida. You're going to hear about an investigative device called LPRs. You may know what those are. It stands for license plate recognition.
License plate readers track them all the way from Jacksonville down to Tampa.
The camera system is from the Florida Highway Patrol. Flock is frequently contracts with cities, with law enforcement agencies. Sometimes they'll put up their own network of cameras, which later plays a role in this case. A lot of times they incorporate other cameras.
This is the Chevy Cruze tracking, the car that Isaiah Chance and Alicia were in, all the way from Jacksonville down to Tampa and back.
Drove away from Teasers and then came back. This is showing you on your left side the Chevy Cruze and the Impala.
I mean, both cars involved in this murder tracked everywhere on license plate readers. You can't commit a crime in a car with a license plate on, especially a murder. You're an idiot.
By the same license plate readers. So you can see they're highlighted. At 18:09 hours, they are both being picked up at 326 in Gainesville Road. At 1947 and 1945, they were both being picked up at Tampa Palms Boulevard and Bruce B. Downs. At 3:41 hours, Hillsborough Avenue and 15th Street. This is the Impala and the Cruze operating in tandem, traveling in tandem, coming from Jacksonville, and then operating through into the early morning hours of the attack. This is the Airbnb on Gazebo Lane. She's knocking on the door and she ends up being let in. And you'll hear someone say, "My bad," as she's let in. So there's clearly people inside of the Airbnb. What is significant is on the 22nd, she is the only person who enters through the front door.
So before the murder, they go around back. For some reason, the back sliding door of this Airbnb to avoid the camera. Like, I don't know what the reason for them to do that, but then they go on camera the next day. So it like makes no sense.
The rest of the conspirators go this way, down the side of the building, around the back of the building, and they enter through sliding glass doors. They do not allow themselves to be recorded. Basically, all of them start showing up on that camera. All of them except for Rashad Murphy, the ghost. He doesn't show up anywhere until later. 3 hours before the murder, about an hour before this conspiracy, before these conspirators begin their hunt for the victim at Teasers, Alicia Andrews' phone leaves the Airbnb and goes to a nearby McDonald's at 2205 East Fletcher. That's 22nd Street in Fletcher. There's a McDonald's there. It's a 24-hour McDonald's. On the right-hand side, you see some cell tower mapping. I'll talk to you about that in a few minutes.
So this is where Davion Murphy really fucks up. He's on camera here with Alicia getting food.
So now you see Davion Murphy. He is smoking a cigar and he's talking to the young lady working in the McDonald's. You can see someone next to him in a car on the right-hand side. The evidence will show that's Miss Andrews, Mr. Chance's girlfriend. But what is significant is they buy a lot of food, a lot more than for two people.
Fueling up on McDonald's before committing a murder.
Mr. Chance and Miss Andrews walking in the parking lot. Mr. Chance is wearing a hoodie, and in June of 2024, he is wearing a COVID mask.
So he's clearly trying to hide his identity. And so is she. I think she has a mask on. Still crazy to me that she didn't get convicted of murder. I'm sorry. Why do you have a mask on outside? And then the next day, they're never wearing masks. Like, they're only wearing masks when they know they're hunting Foolio. Because she was a part of this fucking murder. It's so obvious to me. It's insane that she only got 15 years for manslaughter or whatever.
You see in that video, Mr. Chance has a phone to his head. He is communicating directly with Mr. Gathright by way of that phone. They are using some type of app that is not picked up. They are not text messaging or making phone calls. But that is Alicia Andrews' phone. So as I said, and again, this video is slightly off, but Mr. Jones arrives, that's in front, that's the front entrance to Teasers. You see at the bottom, it's 2:29:49 a.m. is the converted time. And now you see Mr. Chance still there with his girlfriend. And then around 2:54:22 a.m. real time in the morning, Mr. Jones and his friends leave Teasers. Now, the Chevy Impala with these three individuals, Rashad Murphy, Sean Gathright driving, and Davion Murphy in that vehicle. It is like within a minute of Mr. Jones coming out of the club and beginning to leave that they arrive on the north end of the parking lot in the Impala.
At this nightclub location, they almost caught Foolio there. But then I guess they decide not to do it.
That early morning with Mr. Jones, and he'll start live streaming here in a minute.
I know he's trying to enjoy himself, but not smart, man. And there is Isaiah Chance and Alicia at the second location with the hoodies up and masks on the phone. I mean, they can't even say they went in the club because they didn't go in the club. They're just walking around at these locations. They're not going out clubbing because they don't go inside. The shooters are in this car waiting around the corner somewhere. And they sit here for like 5-10 minutes, I believe. Now here's the hotel of the west side of the murder vehicle with the shooters in it coming in.
And now it's heading northbound on the east side of the hotel. Same direction those red arrows showed you earlier. Next camera, this one faces north-northeast, picks up the Impala as it heads further north to the north end of the parking lot. This camera is on the north end of the home to suites, picks up the Impala heading into that northern part of the parking lot. And now it's on the west side. You see the pool to the upper right corner. You see that recreational area there with tables and chairs and grills. So you see the Impala comes down on the west side. It creeps down a little bit, but never breaks around the corner to where it can be seen by Mr. Jones or his friends. In fact, it turns and goes back to the north and park. Here comes the Chevy Cruze. These cars on the west side of the hotel will pass within feet of each other.
Passing within feet is crazy.
The Cruze will go up almost even, and that's Tesla video picking up the Impala going to the left. And you'll see
Both cars on camera with the Tesla. And there's my cat behind me. Now here's Isaiah Chance the day after the murder, celebrating with champagne in a wine glass. And there's just random people out front moving shit.
the neighbor next to them is apparently moving in the unit next to them. That has nothing to do with them. Mr. Chance, and you can see over his shoulder right there, that is an Uber driver that has shown up to take Mr. Chance and Miss Andrews and Rashad Murphy back to Jacksonville. They travel back in an Uber. You'll hear testimony from the Uber driver that he picked up 3 people and drove them to Jacksonville, dropping them back at Sean Gathrigh's residence. There goes Davion Murphy coming from the other side, from the back side. There's Mr. Davion Murphy. There's Mr. Gathright walking out with bags. Mr. Chance just before leaving, and Mr. Gathright.
Asking for the code.
Getting the code from Mr. Chance to get back in. Now, you'll see Mr. Gathright go to the side. He'll leave in the Impala by himself. Davion Murphy drives the Chevy Cruze back to Jacksonville. All of them go back to Jacksonville except Sean Gathright. Mr. Gathright, again, picked up on a license plate reader, this time
Going to switch his cars at his grandma's house. And he tells her it's because his camera equipment is too big for his Impala.
he is going out I-4 to the east. And then you see below that, at 4:25 hours, southbound Florida 595 and C. Fred Jones Parkway in Polk County. He is traveling to his grandmother's house in Auburndale at Opal Avenue, Auburndale. Here is Mr. Gathright. He has parked the Chevy Impala and he's walking inside. You will also see him come out of the garage through another camera. He will start wiping down. This has been accelerated. He's wiping the car down, and he ends up switching cars with his grandmother, leaving the Impala there in Auburndale and taking a Toyota 4Runner. He drives the 4Runner to Orlando and then back to Jacksonville.
Like that's going to help anything. It's registered to your mama.
There's the 4Runner. The Impala is now inside the garage. Says goodbye to his grandmother. Everything's accelerated here, trying to save some time. He travels to Orlando, and again, you see some cell phone mapping occurring down there in the low left corner. I'm going to talk to you again about that in a few minutes. I'm going to go
Celebratory post.
through that with you. But you can see Lake Eola, which is in downtown Orlando, and that first white box in the middle of the screen. Just below that, you see Church Street. He's being picked up. His phone is, he is at Parlay nightclub in Orlando, and he takes this picture of Don Julio and posts it. Again, just going back to show Mr. Chance and his girlfriend going out with their bags to the Infinity, which is an Uber driver. This is the Uber. There's the receipt from Uber in the middle. It's $187, a 208-mile ride from Gazebo Pond back to Chipperfield Lane in Jacksonville.
What are the odds of this being $187 too?
This is them arriving, again, back at the place that it all started, at Mr. Gathwright's house. Now, that's Miss Andrews by Mr. Chance's BMW. And you see Rashad Murphy in the light-colored jeans, holding the bag in his left hand with a beret or some kind of a cap on, opening the back door, putting a bag in it. You can see the Uber driver moving around on the left side of the vehicle, and on the right-hand side is Mr. Chance. Again, Even the ghost, Mr. Murphy, got sloppy here. It was picked up on this video. Mr. Murphy wearing jeans that are consistent.
Same jeans getting arrested.
What he was wearing 2 days later when the silver Chevy Cruze was stopped in Gwinnett County, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta.
You think it's a coincidence he's in Georgia now suddenly after murdering someone? No, that motherfucker was fleeing the state.
RASHAD Murphy had fled. Mr. Gathright ends up on that same date, June 26. He's back in Jacksonville. He gets pulled over for a traffic infraction. Officers speak with him. They end up getting him out of his car. They end up searching the 4Runner. And they find, among other items, these items. Now, the MaxTech ammunition, there are 2 boxes full
Glock switch used this.
of 9mm MaxTech, which is a brand of 9mm ammunition, suitable for being fired in a 9mm Glock. MaxTech is the same exact type of ammunition that was fired in this murder. There were 31 shell casings found in the crime scene, 9mm shell casings. They were all MaxTech brand shell casings. He's looking at the damage, and he's seeing all these 9mm shell casings laying there. But what he's not seeing are rifle shell casings. And you saw in those videos, and you will see in this evidence, there was a lot of rifle fire. 2 rifles firing at a high cyclical rate. There's not 1 rifle shell casing in that scene. And that's because these conspirators modified their weapons. They modified those AR-15 rifles by putting what are called brass catchers on the rifles. That is, it's a mesh type device that has a little metal wire frame, and it fits onto above the ejection port of the rifle.
One of these catchers was found in his house too.
And that's why there were no rifle casings in that scene. Mr. Jones and his friends were turned away. Their room had been given away. The hotel was full of people, parents with their children there to attend orientation at USF, parents with their children and other people here in Tampa, sightseeing. That hotel's located right up the road from Busch Gardens and the Yuengling Brewery. They were here. All of those people in that car, in that hotel, none of that affected these shooters. They shot with impunity and with disregard for anyone in the area, several of which went through windows, several of which coursed through hotel rooms above sleeping guests, sleeping in their beds. You will hear from one guest who will tell you she was there with her husband and her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. Her daughter's boyfriend, they were awake and grabbed her, bringing her to the ground to try to protect her. Was in the sink. They found all this items torn up, paper, cardboard, plastic, soaking in water. And when they took it out and put it onto a sheet of paper to let it dry, they noticed that all of these wrappings and packagings all dealt with firearms. There's Magpul, there's Sig Sauer. These are all manufacturers of firearms, ammunition, and firearm components. During the search of this residence, they found ammunition boxes with ammunition. That box is full of, the evidence will show, 5.56 NATO rounds, loaded shotgun shells. This box is full of 5.56 NATO rounds. And then they looked at this safe. Inside the safe, they located some rifles, and they located a brass catcher. This one had been detached. But inside of that brass catcher, they located 2 9mm shell casings. Those shell casings were compared to a 9mm shell casing from the scene of Mr. Jones' murder by the same firearms analyst, Amare Drew, the same analyst I was talking about earlier. And these 2 shell casings were matched to that shell casing that was fired from that fully automatic Glock in the murder, in our case, of Mr. Jones.
How do you defend this? How did these shell cases get in your house if you weren't part of this murder?
And they found another rifle, both AR-style rifles, one a 300 Blackout, one a 5.56 NATO chambered rifle. For 5.56, also can be utilized with 300 Blackout to run in an AR-15. That magazine, that's the top of the magazine where the bullets feed into the gun. And then this is back at the sheriff's office. We saw earlier some of the ammunition that's laid out. Mr. Chance and his girlfriend were detained and arrested at Mr. Chance's residence in Jacksonville. This is July 27th, and a summer rain shower. This is a mapping of one of the defendant's phones in the murder scene. You see the icon murder scene, that's right there, south of the University of South Florida. So when you're looking at that...
These phone records don't give an exact location. It's like a vicinity of the area.
And then that is the sector of that cell tower. Those antennas are covering that third of the 360 degrees. And that area out there is where the handset, the phone is, because it's connecting to that side of the cell tower. This is a photograph from one of the cameras on the Tesla that picked up Mr. Gathright and Mr. Murphy running around the front end of that Tesla. You can see He is literally covered head to toe. Head to toe. He's wearing a hoodie, something black over his face, maybe a gaiter or some kind of a bandana. He's carrying a rifle, but you can still see a sliver of the top of his face that it's light skin, and you can see his hands.
You really can kind of tell it's light skin.
So we start here with Mr. Gathright. This is when he is at his house. His phone will sit there for quite a while until about 9:30, and then his phone will travel down to the Teasers Club, which I'll come back to here momentarily. And then back to Airbnb, where it stays for a little bit, to the latter part of the 22nd, going into the morning of the 23rd.
Look at this. Airbnb, murder scene, club. Like it's the Airbnb and murder scene are so close to each other, and this guy's phone is tracked everywhere. These guys are real confident they didn't track this car a mile away to the Airbnb after the murder. Isaiah Chance sending his live location to Sean's phone.
About 10 minutes before the murder occurs. And again, that's going to be
10 minutes before the murder. I mean, how do you even defend this?
Mr. Gathright's phone, when he is seen on video holding his phone, talking to Mr. Chance, getting the code, is hitting off of the tower just south of the Airbnb. His phone, when he is at his grandmother's house in Auburndale, is hitting off the tower just to the south of that address. And when he's in Orlando, it's hitting there. His phone is a communication with Isaiah Chance. Now, these are different. This is CDRs, call detail records. This is a list of all calls made, dates, times, outgoing, incoming, the phone being called or the phone receiving from. He is communicating with Gathright's phone around the time of 6:22 and to Miss Andrews' phone by these records alone. There is no doubt in this evidence and the evidence that we brought before you that that shooter was Mr. Gathright. This is a list of phone numbers. Mr. Gathright had got rid of his phone and was obtaining a new phone, had made a handwritten list that included several of his co-defendants' names and numbers.
Getting rid of phones, too. Alicia even did the same shit.
The evidence will demonstrate to you was the Glock pistol shooter. You can see the Glock in his left hand. You will find in the evidence Mr. Rashad Murphy is left-handed, his dominant hand. You can see the extended
left-handed, bro. This is where it's really bad for him. The Walmart footage. Exact outfit as one of the shooters.
Friday night at 10:24, 22:24, Mr. Murphy was shopping at a Walmart in Jacksonville. I think we can get some video here. He is holding a phone in his right hand that is, has a pink case. He's walking around. You can see the clothing he is wearing, the positioning of the belt and the type of belt. He is wearing boots, all of which look similar to the clothing being worn on the lower body of the Glock shooter, both going on the lower, middle, and coming back from the shooting scene. You can see in the video, in the top middle photo, there is some type of an issue, a cut or something in the left knee area of the pants. But anyways, that phone, when Mr. Murphy leaves Tampa in the Uber and goes back to Jacksonville, the same Uber with Mr. Chance and Miss Andrews, he doesn't stay in Jacksonville. That's not far enough away. He flees the state of Florida. He flees into the state of Georgia, up to Atlanta, and is stopped on the 26th by Gwinnett County PD, who pick up his vehicle, the same car that was being utilized by Mr. Chance as the tracking spotter car, the surveillance car, the Chevy Cruze, the car that belonged to his brother's baby mama.
Car belonged to his brother's baby mama. I thought it was his girlfriend in my previous video, but no. Still someone connected to him.
Up on an LPR flock system that Gwinnett County contracts with them. Officers from Gwinnett County start searching the area, and they come upon a hotel where there is flock activity, LPR activity. They stay in that area in the early morning hours of the 26th, and they end up encountering...
I mean, these are the exact shoes. And he has children. I think he has like 3 or 4 kids.
And it is a phone that he left in Jacksonville. Mr. Murphy, you will not see any cell phone evidence for the ghost because he left his phone in Jacksonville.
He keeps calling him the Ghost, by the way, because his Instagram name is Ghost.
On the left, you see Mr. Murphy in custody in Gwinnett County. He is accompanied by Charmaine Steiger, his girlfriend, and the mother, I believe, of his children. They had booked into a hotel. He's wearing the same jeans that he's wearing in the driveway of the Gathright residence, Mr. Gathright's residence, when they came back in the Uber, but that's really not, I don't believe, going to be in dispute that is him in the driveway. Taken of his leg and his feet, showing footwear that appears to be the same type of footwear that the Glock shooter is wearing in the crime scene. On June 23rd of 2024 at around noon, Mr. Murphy posts this to his Instagram account under Ghost187. Prosper and Junior, G-Day today, which you will hear from gang detectives, G-Day is Get Back Day today. Prosper, he puts down 187 babies. Prosper and Junior were individuals who were shot several years prior. They were members of a predecessor gang that became 1200, and that is an homage to them. The state would prove to you in its evidence just after the murder.
I may point out, they got screenshots of these guys' Instagrams from 5 minutes ago. They're watching these guys' Instagrams.
Gerard Adams, going back to that murder that occurred in August of 18, Mr. Adams is a blood cousin of both of the Murphys, Davion and Rashad. So this wasn't just about gang affiliations. The evidence will show. When confronted with the text messages, he admits that he sent a picture of his ID, but he didn't know that it was being booked in Tampa. And again says he was never in Tampa, not that weekend, doesn't know anything about the murder, about Tampa. And then the detectives confront him with the Uber video from Sean Gathrigh's house, and then everything changes. First he says he goes there all the time. He describes Sean as a light-skinned guy. Then he admits that he put the Airbnb in his name, but keeps denying he went to Tampa. Then the detectives step out of the interview room for a while. Meanwhile, Rashad Murphy there's a blanket in there to keep him warm, puts it over his head, lays his head on the table for a while. They come back in and he still tells him he wasn't in Tampa. Then he claims he was physically in Tampa that week, and he changes his story. He's seen the Uber video. He says early that morning of the 23rd, he and another guy who the detectives investigate and find is a deceased person traveled to Tampa in some old car. He wasn't even here for 2 hours.
So he lied, saying he was with someone who was dead. They figure out the person is dead.
For first-degree murder, the state must prove that the defendant intended the killing of the victim, in this case, Charles Jones. It's not necessary for a principal to know every detail of how a first-degree murder will be committed, as long as that person intended that it be committed and did some act or said something that was intended to help or did help the murder to occur. But almost most importantly, a principal does not have to be present when the crime is committed.
So he's talking about Isaiah Chance for the principals and all this, because Isaiah Chance wasn't present when the murder committed. He was just tracking him around, helping the murder happen.
Along with his girlfriend, were in the car that was tracking, following, and surveilling Mr. Jones, and again, providing real-time information as to his whereabouts and location, even with the type of coordination that, as the victim is exiting teasers, the Impala comes right there within a minute and pulls into the parking lot from a completely opposite direction. This is his mapping. It maps him going all the way down from Gathrigh's house, all the way down to the Airbnb, and it's the same kind of mapping sequence that we saw with Mr. Gathright, but instead of going to Auburndale and Orlando, it tracks him back in that Uber going back north. We talked about Mr. Gathright, or Mr. Chance being at Gathright's house. He's hitting off cell towers right there at the same time. Again, hitting off cell towers, so we know he's there. His phone is hitting off of the tower just south of the Airbnb at the same time on the 22nd that his girlfriend is seen at the front door. And on June 23rd at 10:29 a.m., just hours after the death of Charles Jones, he posts this to his Instagram account, a photograph of Mr. Chance, and the person giving the bird there on the other side of the car is Antonio Tilley, who we know is a dead, or not a dead ops, but is a member of their gang that was murdered.
So he's posting pictures of his friends that got killed, like he got revenge for them.
Who the state believes the evidence will show is the shooter with the orange ski mask who was up behind the other two shooters. We have mapping of his phone from Jacksonville there. His phone is hitting off a tower just to the side of the McDonald's at the time he is there in the Chevy Cruze. His phone is hitting off of a tower just to the south of the Airbnb at 2:59, several hours after the murder as they were getting ready to leave. And then his phone is hitting off of a tower near Lake Butler, Florida, just northeast of Gainesville, at the same time that it is being picked up on an LPR right there at Main Street in Lake Butler, Florida. His phone is in contact with Isaiah Chance. Mr. Murphy is the biggest, heaviest one of these defendants. Just
Calling that man fat.
that's Mr. Murphy. When he was arrested, you will see tattoos. You see many on his neck and chest. He has a 1200 tattoo on the back of his neck. He has the name of people from 1200 who have been murdered tattooed on his body. And in this video, you will clearly see in the evidence Mr. Davion Murphy taking full credit for his role in this shooting. That is just after his arrest, when he is left alone in an interview room.
This guy's an idiot. Look at his lawyers. Lawyer's like, oh shit. That wasn't in the first trial. Oh yeah, Isaiah Chance and Foolio were arguing on Twitter at some point.
Charles Jones talking, and you will clearly hear Gutta Man, you can see his name on there, Mr. Chance talking. They are arguing, and you will clearly hear Mr. Chance say, hey, Foolio, your foot okay, cuz? Your foot okay? This was after, this is June 6th. This is June 6th of 2024, 9 months after Mr. Charles Jones was shot in his lower leg in Jacksonville. A shooting where there were shell casings scientifically linked to defendant Gathright, Mr. Chance's friend. And you will hear Mr. Jones reply to him. There was no cold feet. Nobody had cold feet. There was no hesitation. There was absolutely zero, nada, mercy shown to Charles Jones or his friends. What the evidence will show you in this trial is a cold-blooded, premeditated execution. A precise, a coordinated attack with nothing left to chance and no detail spared. The evidence in this case will convince each of you. You will know, and it'll be crystal clear to you, that all 4 of these defendants conspired and murdered Charles Jones.
Prosecutor did a pretty good job laying out their case. Let's see what the defense does here. Isaiah Chance's lawyer.
It's charged Isaiah Chance with first-degree premeditated murder. That's as serious as it gets in the state of Florida. Now there's a weight in your decision and what we do here these next few weeks. And that is precisely why the Constitution demands the highest burden in the legal system, beyond the exclusion of every reasonable doubt, in every step of the way. Isaiah doesn't have to prove anything. I mention that again, not that you don't know that, you know that very well, not only because it's constitutional bedrock, because I want you to view this state not through Isaiah, but through what the state can prove, and more importantly, what they cannot prove. I ask you to hold the state to their very high burden, which is ruling out every reasonable doubt of every fact and element necessary to prove the allegations against Mr. Chance. That is their burden. That's what you swore to hold them to, and that's what I'm going to ask you to do. As you know, they're attempting to prove 3 things against Isaiah Chance. Him as a principal, or excuse me, 2 things. Isaiah is a principal, premeditated murder, and conspiracy to commit that murder. And to do that, they need to prove 3 things. That Isaiah wanted Charles Jones dead. I ask you to look for that conscious intent that he wanted Charles Jones dead. Not speculation, not inferences, the conscious intent. Make the state prove that. I believe they'll be unable to do so once you've seen all the evidence. They also have to prove that he had actual knowledge of the plan, that specific plan, to kill Charles Jones that night. Again, not inferences, not speculation, not assumptions on what his behavior may or may not have meant. I believe at the end of the evidence they will be unable to do so once you've seen it all. And lastly, that he did something, some act, some concrete step. Mr. Harmon showed you the list of what constitutes that in the principal statute. Help, assist, cause, encourage. However, I believe once you see all the evidence, any act that he's done requires you to speculate as to its meaning, and that you also speculate as to the knowledge he had when he did that act. Watch carefully through this trial. I believe when you see all the evidence, the state will be unable to prove any of those 3 things, and if they can't prove any of those, you would have to find Mr. Chance not guilty. You traveled to Tampa knowing the purpose of that trip was to kill Charles Jones. But ask yourself, is there going to be a witness, a piece of evidence, a text message, an admission, something that proves that Isaiah knew about this plan, that he had knowledge of the plan to kill Charles Jones? I submit they will not. They will be unable to rule out, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Isaiah simply was not aware of the specific plan.
He's packing the car with guns. He's walking around with the mask outside tracking Foolio at 3 different locations. He provides the Glock switch on camera.
For instance, Mr. Harmon showed Isaiah Chance moving bags. Look for evidence that Isaiah knew what was in those bags, not the assumption that he must have known or he could have known or he should have known. Look for proof that anyone knew what was in those bags. Wait for a witness to testify that they could say what was in those bags and that Isaiah knew what was in those bags. I submit that will not come during the evidence. Do not fill in the holes to the state's case. Hold them to that burden. Make them prove that Isaiah had knowledge of this plan. I believe the evidence will not show an act, something that Isaiah did to assist this murder, while having the knowledge the murder was taking place. This goes back to Mr. Wise's example in jury selection about the progressive commercial, I believe, with Jamie, where he helps people drive away from a bank robbery not knowing they've committed the bank robbery. You have to have knowledge that the crime was going to occur and commit an act of furtherance to help that crime.
He's really trying his hardest to add some doubt.
However, I believe the evidence will show you that Mr. Jones did not book that hotel until just before they got there, hours before, whereas the Airbnb was booked days before. So this wasn't a situation where they followed someone to where they thought they were going to be. No one knew they were going to be at this Home 2 Suites. We've seen a picture of Isaiah on the phone, not his phone, on what they believe Alicia Andrews' phone, talking to what they believe Sean Gathright. Look for the state to be able to prove what is the contents of that phone call. I submit they will not be able to prove what was said in that phone call, and definitely not be able to prove that that phone call had anything to do with the murder. They want you to assume it did. They want you to say it probably did, but that's not beyond a reasonable doubt. I would also submit that that's the only time that he's seen with Alicia's phone. And that will be stacked on the inference that he had knowledge. Doing something stacked on the inference that he had knowledge. And you can't stack inferences. You also were shown that Isaiah didn't get to the crime scene, allegedly, until, we know for a fact, until after the shooter's car was already there. They were there first and he was there. We also know, as Mr. Harmon pointed out, the shooter's car was watching Mr. Jones leave Truth 18. So they knew when he left. Mr. Harmon also showed that Isaiah was driving at Teasers. That's the only time he's seen driving that silver Cruise. Just like that's the only time he's seen on the phone, on Alicia's phone. Yet Mr. Harmon continued to say through his opening, Here's Isaiah texting from her phone. Here's Isaiah texting from her phone. Here's Isaiah sending this from their phone. There's no proof of that. I asked you to look for proof that Isaiah ever used her phone more than once. We have the one time on camera. They need to prove the other times. You cannot just assume every time her phone is used, Isaiah's the one using it. Without proof. I submit there will be none. Just like you cannot assume that just because that silver Cruise is driving, that Isaiah is the one driving it. I submit you will not be able to, there will be no evidence showing that he's driving it at Truth 18, and no evidence that in that video at the crime scene, you'll have no evidence of who's driving the car. And you cannot assume he's driving that car at that time. Look for evidence of what he did as a lookout at that crime scene to help in furtherance of the crime. We saw the car drive by. We didn't see it stop. We didn't see any communication between the two. Look for proof of communication between Isaiah, not a phone, didn't belong to him, Isaiah and the alleged shooters. I submit you will not find any. They will lean on cell phone data and location evidence, but that is not intent. And they will lean on social media. You saw the spaces. That requires a lot of speculation as to what exactly that meant weeks before in what Mr. Harmon referred to as an argument. I would take umbrage with that. We'll see what you believe. What the evidence will not show you is Isaiah Chance firing a weapon. It will not show you Isaiah Chance directing anyone to fire a weapon. The alleged gun that he's in his possession, that's the last time we could see that gun. And there's no indication that specific gun was used or involved in the murder whatsoever. The state's evidence, I do not believe, will give you the unambiguous definitive proof the law requires before you can find him guilty of either charge. When you hear all the evidence, I do not believe you'll believe the state has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They will show you he traveled to Tampa. They will show you he was present that night. But then they will ask you to make a leap, to assume that presence equals guilt, that association equals conspiracy, and that being there means he planned a murder. And that is not proof, that is speculation, that is assumption, and does not meet their high burden. I'm going to ask you not to fill in the gaps of the state's case. They're going to paint a picture for you. They need to paint the whole picture. We can't ask you to connect the dots of part of the picture. They have a burden. It is a significant burden. I'm going to ask you to hold them to that burden. I keep bringing up that burden, and I apologize, but it is very important because it is a very high burden for a very important reason. At the close of this trial, I will come back to you once we have actually seen all the evidence, what has been presented, and you'll be able to review it and put what you believe your weight is on it. And I think it'll be far less below the burden of what they need to prove this case. And when I do so, I'm going to actually do one thing. When I come back before you at the end of this trial, follow the law. And once you've seen all the evidence and heard all the witnesses, I believe the only just verdict will be not guilty. Thank you.
This was pretty good for what this lawyer has to try to do. He's telling him to follow the law, don't fill in the gaps. Isaiah was just walking around, didn't know what was going on. He wasn't on that phone, kind of inferring that it's Alicia's phone. She was doing it all.
Sean Gathright had nothing to do with these shootings that took place in Tampa.
Sorry, what do you mean, bro? He's found with all the evidence on him in his home and shit.
You've just heard a lot of theory from the state for several hours today. One thing I want to remind you, you haven't heard any evidence yet. You saw Mr. Harmon showing you videos saying, this is so-and-so, this is Sean Gathright, this is Abigail Murphy. No, you're the ones who are going to decide who these people are. The state gave you its theory, but over these next couple of weeks, you're going to decide, you're going to put the puzzle together. And what Mr. Harmon said, what I'm saying, what Mr. Petraeus said, it's not evidence. His mother was a retired Marine, served quite a while in the Marines, and that's going to have some relevance that I'll get to later, and you'll hear about more as the case goes on. But she likes shooting. She was a pretty avid shooter herself, and a lot of it goes back to the time she spent in the military. Mr. Gathright is young, obviously. He's not far out of school. He's 18. He's started photography and pressure washing businesses for himself, and he worked as much as he could. He was trying to build the businesses, get jobs in either of those fields. He would videos you saw of things being loaded in the car are the equipment that he uses in the course of those businesses. Some other things you won't see is any connection between Mr. Gathright and this rap scene.
Yeah, he was not a documented member of a gang, I don't believe, before this incident.
You saw numerous rap videos this morning. All these people who are allegedly involved, who have motives to want to kill each other, he doesn't fit into that anywhere. You don't see any evidence of him having any connection to any of these rap videos, or really any of these people that you heard about this morning, frankly.
I may say Sean also was a part of another shooting in Mississippi in 2023 where 3 people got shot. I don't remember what happened to him. I think he took a plea or something. He has a history of being part of shootings. Let's just put that out there.
Or any reason he would want Mr. Jones to be harmed. You heard a long backstory this morning about these reasons why people wanted Charles Jones killed. But what I want you to remember is when the vast majority, if not all of those things took place, all these prior events, these prior shootings that allegedly precipitated the shooting of Charles Jones, he was a kid. And I don't mean Mr. Gathright was 17. I mean, he was a child when most of that stuff took place. Where does he fit into this motive to want to kill Charles Jones? And I expect every one of them that you may hear from this week, I'm going to ask him, have you ever heard of Sean Gathright? And every one of them is going to say no. I had no idea who Sean Gathright was until Tampa police contacted us. And you'll hear that he was friends with Isaiah Chance. He had met Chance, I believe, through his older sister. They weren't particularly close, but they had developed a friendship for a short time prior to this happening. They have really no connection between either of the other two defendants in the case, or I think you'll see really anyone else that you're going to hear about.
Just adding doubt. He has no connection to anyone.
One of our phones could be hitting 3 different towers at any point right now. So these phones are not as precise as you may have been led to believe this morning. But you'll see that evidence. You'll get to decide for yourself how much weight to give the phone tower evidence, and not even really how much weight to give it, but how much you can really read into the phone tower evidence. But it will show that, yes, Mr. Gathright is in Tampa, goes to his grandmother's in Polk County, and then moves on to Orlando to his sister's. Now, when he's at his grandmother's house, so he lets her, or she lets him borrow the 4Runner, and as you saw, he cleans out the Impala, which I think she's going to tell you is something she expects to be done. She has some lung issues, and she wants that car clean. The other thing I think you're going to hear is that the lung.
She has some lung issues. She wants the car cleaned. This shit is so funny, bro.
Enforcement later collects the rag that's used to wipe that down. So it's not like there's anything being hidden from the Impala being cleaned out. But in any event, yes, he switches cars, goes on to Orlando to hang out at the sister's party. When he's in Orlando, that's when you saw a photograph of the Don Julio bottle. I think you're going to see lots of Don Julio photographs here. That's nothing unusual. You're going to see, I mean, you saw it in a couple of the videos this morning. Everyone seemed to be drinking Don Julio in this case. And after Orlando, of course, Mr. Gathright returns back to Jacksonville. The traffic stop that you heard about that happens later on, Mr. Gathright is by himself when that happens. He's by himself, by the way, when he's gone to his grandmother's house, when he's gone to the party. He's by himself when the traffic stop happens. There are numerous firearm-related materials found inside that. Now, I would suggest you say at this point, or law enforcement rather, probably thinks they have now found this gold mine. Look at all these guns. They must connect back to Tampa. But they don't. And that includes a 9mm handgun that's inside the car. It doesn't match up to the shooting that took place in Tampa, even though they find 31 9mm casings. So one casing, or there are a couple of casings that apparently are matched back to casings that are found in the prior alleged shooting of Foolio. And I think again with him when he was a juvenile. But in any event, I want to emphasize, because you heard the word match used. Law enforcement is not saying and cannot say that these casings that are found in the car fired shots during the Foolio shooting. What they can say is allegedly, and I'm going to ask you to pay close attention to how casings are allegedly matched. I would suggest to you it is a very...
It's the markings. The gun leaves a distinct marking. So it's the same gun that fired that specific casing, not the exact casing from the shooting.
Subjective science, and it's questionable. But in any event, all it's saying is the same gun that allegedly was used in that shooting allegedly fired these. Not at the same time, not during the same incident. It's saying the firing pin markings on these casings were the same. Again, it does not say when those casings found in the 4Runner were fired, how they got there, anything of that sort. And again, it's mixed between numerous other firearms-related evidence that has nothing to do with this case. No connection back to the case. Something else on that, by the way, and this probably goes without saying, but this prior shooting of Mr. Jones in Jacksonville didn't just ignore that. You're going to hear they've been investigating that. They were trying to, they were trying to obviously solve that crime that happened in Jacksonville. And again, all these detectives who were working that case never heard of Sean Gathright.
He was getting away with it. Bro was getting away with it until he finished the job.
But suffice it to say, there are 2 rifles found. And I expect, again, law enforcement probably thought, oh man, we found pieces of the puzzle now. But the problem, again, is nothing matches back to those rifles from the shooting that took place in Tampa. One of the rifles is what's called a 300 blackout. It's like a 30 caliber, and there are many rifles. Those of you who are familiar with many rifles fire a 30 caliber bullet with a 300 blackout. There are no 300 caliber or 30 caliber bullets, I should say, at the scene. No projectiles that are found match back to that 300 blackout. In fact, every projectile that is compared to it was actually eliminated out of the fire. The other gun that's found, the 5.56, which is also a 223 caliber, and it can fire both cartridges. Several projectiles from the scene were eliminated from that one. And there's some that the examiner can't necessarily eliminate, but can't match that gun either. So, at best, one of them can't be eliminated as having fired the projectile, but no projectiles are matched.
You're talking about the ARs that were found in the home.
None of the shooters, and certainly not the one firing the 9mm, go back and pick up the rounds that would have been ejected from the gun. All this alleged match means is allegedly the same gun.
Judge, I want to object at this point to arguing.
Okay. I'm going to overrule the objection. And just remember again, ladies and gentlemen, this are the opening statements. This is what the attorneys believe the evidence will show. Okay?
I believe the evidence is going to show you that all that means is the same firing pin impression is found on the casings, those 2 in the house, and the ones found at the scene. And that's the most.
Judge, I want to object. That's a misstatement of what the evidence will be. Counsel knows it. That's a misstatement.
Okay. Listen, again, I'm just going to remind everyone that what the attorneys say is not evidence, and you are not to take it as such. They're simply telling you what they believe the evidence will show. As the evidence comes in is when you all will determine what, in fact, the evidence is.
Bro said it's a misstatement.
The evidence that we talked about yesterday, that you've heard about today, you're going to decide how much weight to give that out. Okay. So maybe Mr. Harmon believes that evidence is going to show you something different than what I believe. But you're
Objection
going
to
to
that
decide.
comment, Your Honor. It's improper as to what I believe what the representative of the state believes.
Okay. And I will sustain that objection. Okay?
So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it's for you to decide how much weight. You're going to see the evidence over the course of a couple of weeks. You haven't seen any evidence yet. You've heard us, and you're probably tired of hearing from us. But you're going to decide how much weight this evidence has. And I ask you, and that kind of transitions into what I was going to be saying next. Pay close attention to the evidence that you're going to hear over these next couple of weeks, because there's a lot more to it than what you just saw this morning. Don't jump to any conclusions, and look at the whole picture. I'll give you a couple little examples. You saw these text messages this morning, Mr. Gathwright's phone asking about somebody fat boy. I expect you're going to hear no one who was with Charles Jones that night knows who the heck Fat Boy is, or that there was a Fat Boy there. I firmly believe, I know once you do that, you're going to see John Gathwright's not guilty of any of these charges.
That was pretty rough. All right, Rashad Murphy's lawyer.
Rashad Murphy has contended, ladies and gentlemen, from day one, that he is not guilty of the charges that he has been accused of committing. And certainly that cannot surprise you, because here we are. What Mr. Harmon indicated to you in his presentation about what occurred at the hotel and where the entourage with Mr. Jones traveled from one place to another did in fact occur. That is not a point in dispute, what occurred. The question, as you listen and as you receive the evidence over the upcoming days into weeks, we'll see how that goes.
This client's on camera with the matching outfit of a shooter, has the Airbnb reservation, and took a picture of the same boots on his phone, fled the state.
Did Rashad Murphy participate in this attack? And did he conspire with anyone? What evidence, not what speculation, proves this to you? Because, as I said, and as I will say, and as I will continue to say, these men are individuals, and you have to treat the evidence as such. I submit that, and I anticipate that there will be a wholly insufficient lack of evidence that will be presented by the state, in this case, in attempt to convince you that Mr. Murphy specifically is responsible for a first-degree murder and conspired with anyone in order to commit a first-degree murder. I'd ask you to pay very close attention to what the state in this case cannot show you in their attempt to prove the elements of each of the offenses. And each of those offenses have different elements that you understand have to be proved. Primarily, Rashad Murphy's presence in Tampa at the time of the murder. I'd ask you to determine what evidence the state provides you and who will testify that...
Oh, he's going to say he wasn't even there at the time of the murder in Jacksonville because they don't have his phone. Interesting. That's pretty much the only route he could go.
Rashad Murphy made an agreement with anyone. Rashad Murphy was in Tampa at 4:40 a.m. on the 23rd, early morning hours of June 23rd. And how Rashad Murphy attempted to assist another person in actually committing a first-degree murder. This prosecution, I believe, is rooted in circumstantial evidence. I don't believe you're going to hear that Rashad Murphy made a statement that implicates himself in a murder. I don't believe there's going to be testimony from an eyewitness that will identify Rashad Murphy as a shooter in this case, or a person in Tampa at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock a.m. through 4:40 a.m., the time of the shooting and the murder in this case. Remember, things that lead you to believe other things are dangerous. In order to find someone guilty of any crime based on circumstantial evidence, you must find that the indirect evidence is proof of one or more facts which you can find another fact. Don't be led to rely solely on inferences to support the necessary elements that are required by the law to sustain the state's burden of proof without carefully connecting the dots, which unequivocally will become a period at the end of the sentence. Every defendant, Rashad Murphy, Davion Murphy, Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathwright, they're all charged with the most serious crimes that we have.
Yeah, these guys wanted different trials. They wanted to be all severed.
What the association of these rap videos that are performed by Spinabens, Young and Ace, Wappa with the Choppa, Bass Money Goon, Julio Foolio. Rap videos titled Who I Smoke, Foolio Dead, Game Over, as well as others, I anticipate you'll hear, and what they have to do with Rashad Murphy, if anything at all. Those very videos that are meant to disrespect and provide a social media following, accentuate this disrespect, that provide a social media accounting of his death in its aftermath, at a time when this death is already common knowledge in social media as well as news and print media.
So he's saying his death was common knowledge and they were just dissing a dead guy that they didn't kill because it was already public and everything.
I anticipate they won't be able to tell you is anything of substance as it related to who committed this crime. Their testimony, I anticipate, will not get you any closer to credible evidence about the perpetrators
And I anticipate that none of them will provide you testimony that they themselves are involved in any criminal gang and that Foolio is anything more than a successful rapper. One of those individuals I expect you to hear from is Robert Howard, also known on the street as Kenny Caps. Mr. Howard, I believe the evidence will indicate, is a close friend of Charles Jones, who traveled with him to Tampa. Lo and behold, he is in need of some help for himself and runs to the table to suggest that he had multiple communications with RASHAD Murphy, both before and after the murder, that are relevant based on what weight, if any, you choose to give to Robert Howard under the circumstances. Again, your responsibility as to Mr. Howard, as it is to every witness that takes the stand in this particular case.
Basically saying Robert Howard is a liar trying to get out of prison because he's in federal prison. Robert Howard is in one of the cars that got shot up next to Foolio.
Will be through the testimony of multiple Jacksonville gang detectives. I believe at least 3. I believe that the evidence will show that their testimony, depending on what weight you choose to give it, is primarily based on opinion, speculation, hearsay from unnamed sources, and the fact that there were multiple prior shootings and murders over the years, many of which are unsolved, many of which there have been no arrests and no prosecutions to this day. RASHAD Murphy thought, what RASHAD Murphy might have planned, and what RASHAD Murphy might have participated, all under the guise of whether this murder is in furtherance of some type of gang activity. You have to begin to compartmentalize what you see and how it falls into a bucket of one. Make it make sense to you, ladies and gentlemen. Hold the state to providing you this evidence beyond into this reasonable doubt, to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt, that RASHAD Murphy was in the city of Tampa at 4:40 a.m. on June 23rd of 2024. Compel them to show you that RASHAD Murphy was one of the 3 shooters, because that is what they allege, in those early morning hours, not by conjecture, not by speculation, not by opinion, but by facts and reliable evidence. I feel confident that after you hear the evidence, after you determine its weight as to the respective defendants in this case, and especially RASHAD Murphy, that you will find that there is insufficient evidence that he conspired with any defendant in this case to commit a premeditated murder, nor did he commit it. The same would account for 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder. I believe that the evidence will also indicate to you that he's not a principal to any of these acts that were committed by others. Look for RASHAD Murphy. Look for RASHAD Murphy at every turn. Scour the evidence to locate him, to see him as you receive it during the course of this trial. After you review all of this evidence, I believe that you're going to return a guilty, not guilty verdict, because RASHAD Murphy's liberty should not be at stake, and he should not be convicted of the acts of others that he cannot be legally held accountable for.
All right. Even though he's on camera, matching outfit, on camera at the Airbnb with everyone, on camera at Sean Gathroyd's house after. All right, this old fart's for Davion Murphy.
So what are the facts of this case the state outlined for 3 hours? And that is, we'll agree that on June 23rd, 2024,
Why is he
Charles
smiling, bro?
Jones, known as Foolio Murphy, is in no way a suspect, a defendant, or anything to do with any of those homicides and the attempted homicide on Mr. Charles Jones, okay? It has nothing to do with Davion Murphy. It has to do with the alleged gang wars between some gangs. So just make sure that that's clear. Also, the state, in its opening, went into the drill rap videos. Again, they're alleging that this is part of the motive for the death of Charles Jones, that these drill rap videos were dishing or being disrespectful to each other, and that's what caused part of the wars that apparently allegedly go back to 2018. We're talking about Spin Events and Youngson Ace, and these are some of the drill rap performers, and some of which, but again, so that we're clear, this is part of the motive. And nowhere in any of those videos, those drill videos, is Davion Murphy mentioned, a participant, name brought up, or anything. It has nothing to do with Davion Murphy.
Trying to separate his client from everyone. Client is related to someone that was murdered, though, in the whole gang war.
And I believe we're going to find out from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office detectives who are part of their gang enforcement unit, 2 or 3 of them. And each are assigned to different particular gangs. I anticipate we're going to find out that none of them had heard of or knew anything about Davion Murphy prior to the homicide of Charles Jones. They showed you part of a Tesla video. That's the video from the Tesla vehicle. They allege 3 individuals are the shooters, one of which they allege is Davion Murphy. But in that video, you cannot identify anybody.
This man pouring himself some coffee or some shit. But no, that's water.
to show somebody doing some shooting, but we can't identify who the shooters are. Okay. There's the evidence from the Airbnb. All right, what evidence is there from the Airbnb? The state brings that up. The only time that you see Davion Murphy at the Airbnb is when he's leaving. The day, it was technically still the 23rd, but in the later morning of the 23rd, that afternoon, that day, the 23rd, there is no video of who they allege RASHAD Murphy as a participant in this homicide, and there is no video of RASHAD Murphy at the Airbnb. So the only time that we see Davion Murphy is leaving the Airbnb, and earlier in the evening, prior to the actual homicide, we see him at the McDonald's drive-thru, the video that the state showed you on that. Recall that the vehicle that he's in is not the black Impala, but the silver Cruise. Okay.
So you're saying you never saw him until after the murder, and he was only in the silver Cruise. He wasn't in the vehicle with the shooters.
Of the license plate readers, etc., that they allege that's evidence to try to convince you that Davion Murphy is somehow involved in the homicide of Charles Jones. The license plate readers, number one, obviously you can't tell who's in the vehicles, number one. Mr. Davion Murphy is not the owner of any of those vehicles, the silver Cruise. And we cannot tell, as I've indicated, who the actual occupants are of that vehicle. It's the state's speculation that it is, in fact, Davion Murphy. Now, I believe the detectives will testify that although there was a Ring camera at the Airbnb, there was no camera in the rear portion of the Airbnb. We're not sure exactly who all was in the Airbnb. We know that RASHAD Murphy allegedly is not in the Airbnb because there's no photos of him coming or going from the Airbnb. And what about the state touched on the security videos that came from the Teasers Club? There's zero security video of Davion Murphy at Teasers or at Truth 18. Those security videos where you see some of them walking up and they showed you the video of Charles Jones. There's no videos showing that Davion Murphy is at either one at Teasers or at Truth 18. The state also presented a lot of evidence that was recovered at Sean Gathwright's residence. All the guns, the ammunition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of that whatsoever is in any way connected to Davion Murphy. The state cannot show you any cell phone records that show that Davion Smith was ever at the Home 2 Suites. Okay. There may be evidence of the other co-defendants or co-defendants that may have been present, but the phone records will show that Davion Murphy was not at the Home 2 Suites at the time of the homicide of Charles Jones. There is no physical evidence whatsoever that connects Davion Murphy to the death of Charles Jones. There is no DNA on all the projectiles that were found there, the ones that were found at Gathwright. There's none. There's no fingerprints. There's zero physical evidence that connects Davion Murphy to the death of Charles Jones. Davion Murphy's phone exonerates him because his phone is not at the Home 2 Suites at the time of the homicide. There is no direct evidence or any direct testimony that links Davion Murphy to the death of Charles Jones. The fact that he was present at the McDonald's and may have been present at the Airbnb is insufficient to make him a principal. Just mere presence is insufficient. We'll have to determine the evidence as it applies individually to each of the defendants that are charged.
All right, that's it for opening statements. Comment down below what you guys think and subscribe. Love you guys. Peace out.